What's up, everybody? I'm Roger Knowles, and welcome to This Week in Gaming, where we talk about the latest video game news, topics, and whatever we bloody well like. But for this show, this is a very special show because we're going to literally not only throw in Star Wars video games, we're going to talk about the latest movie trailer, which was shown at Star Wars Celebration in Chicago, and talk about the Mandalorian TV series, and talk about, hopefully, the Clone Wars series, which will also got a reveal trailer. But of course, I am not on my own. I am joined by Ed from GameHog.
Hello, it's me, Ed from GameHog. How are we all? Star Wars is one of my biggest nerd passions, and I know an awful lot about it, so I'm very excited that we're finally here able to discuss one of my favorite ever franchises. So we've got quite a few things with a brand new TV series, a new game, and a brand new movie, all of which great topics for discussion. Lots of mileage there. But it's not only me who's going to be talking about it. Who else is here, Roger?
We've got Luke from Luke and James Play.
Hi everyone, Luke here. I'm the world's worst Star Wars fan. I know absolutely nothing, but I could tell you something.
Well, you don't know absolutely nothing about the movies. Like, if I threw a question and said to you, which is your favourite Star Wars movie, Luke, which one would you possibly pick?
I don't have a favourite. I like them all.
Oh, that's good.
I even like Rogue One.
That's good as well. The correct answer is Empire Strikes Back, but I mean, like, that's fine. That's fine. We'll go with that as well.
See, is that the one with the little fairy guys?
No,
that's 6.
Yeah.
That's Return of the Jedi. Empire Strikes Back is the one that starts on Hoth with the
Snow Planet.
Mine's the favourite one. My favourite one is the one with Jar Jar in it.
And that beautiful voice is James from Luke and James Play.
It's not, honestly.
Jim isn't part of the channel anymore.
Really
He said that. Sorry.
But yeah, I don't. I know less than Luke. I like it. I'd watch it if it was on, but I haven't gone out of my way to watch it. I have seen them.
You said you haven't seen any of the new ones.
Nope.
Nope.
I think I've seen the one that Luke mentioned.
Rogue One.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. That's the one with BB-8, isn't it?
No.
That's The Force Awakens.
Right. Okay, I've seen that one.
Okay.
See, in Force Awakens, I fell asleep at the most crucial part of the movie. Not because I was bored, because I just fell asleep.
I thought you said that was The Last Jedi last time.
The one where Rey and that other guy fight together.
Okay, so that's in 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one. I fell asleep at that part, and then I woke up and like Luke
How
was
did you
around.
fall asleep there?
Not because I was bored.
Best moment in arguably the most cinematic moment in Star Wars history.
Exactly. I just literally fell asleep. I cannot explain it.
Fair enough, mate.
Mate.
Charles in the chat says Solo is my favourite Star Wars movie.
Not seen it, mate.
Good film. It's a very good film. Not the best, but highly entertaining if you're a Star Wars fan. Good fun. Good fun film. Ed, actually, talking about the Solo movie, you did say that you hadn't seen it last time we spoke. Have you seen it now?
I still haven't seen it. I have no intention of watching it. I managed to. I didn't intend to not see it. It's just I never got around to watching it. I heard so many mixed reviews, and I personally don't believe those movies should exist because they're made out of a money grabbing idiocy from Disney. And the fact that they were, it was a short-sighted decision to make those movies because they cancelled every other movie other than those two because they didn't do well. So I don't want to support those movies. But that's the reason why I want to support things like The Mandalorian, which we'll go into more detail on later in the show, is because that and the Marvel Cinematic Universe are both coming to the
Pinnacle
Disney Plus. I think they're calling it.
Oh, yes.
What are they calling it? Is it
Disney Plus. Disney Plus. Yes.
So when we've got that. That's great because we can pour our attention and our finances into showing Disney that that's what we want. Because I don't think something like Rogue One deserved a sort of slightly under 2-hour jaunt where you're meant to suddenly care about characters. Spoiler alert. You're meant to care about characters who you know are going to die by the end because you've never heard of them.
Yeah, but it's not always about the end. It's about what happens when they get there.
But nothing happens because, basically, everything that happens in that movie is sort of irrelevant because we know where the ending is. We know that the Death Star gets destroyed at the end, and all the only line you needed was what they had, which was, "We managed to secure these Death Star plans. Many Bothans died to get us these plans."
Actually,
We
that's
didn't see a
wrong.
single bomb.
This is where my nerdness is actually going to. That's actually said in Return of the Jedi, which is in reference to the second Star Wars. Sorry, the second Death Star. Because everybody, when it was announced, actually thought it was from Mon Mothma who says that line, and it's actually obviously to do with the first Death Star. Sorry. Being nerdy, I just want to point out. I'm like, haha, I know Star Wars.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah,
I personally just didn't. I liked how the ending of the film, how they basically made it end 20 minutes before the start of episode 4. That bit I did like. I basically hated everything else about it because you don't get to learn any of the characters beyond their cliche stereotype caricatures, which is boring. The best character was the fucking robot. That's how you know it's not a well done movie, is if the character you associate with is a thing that has no life and no humanity in it.
I can see where you're coming from with that, actually, because like I personally enjoyed Rogue One. I enjoyed the setting of it, but going on to what you said though, I'll put my hand in the air and go, if someone asked me to name a character from Rogue One,
exactly, they're not flushed out enough.
Vernon
it's a fun story.
No.
But it deserved to be told in a series.
Yes.
Because there you can flush that out. It's why anime tends to never work as a movie. It's because anime is very slow and methodical and a bit beating around the bush. And you can't condense that without missing crucial details or pacing or important beats in a storyline. And that's the really frustrating thing about these movies. I'm sure Solo is a really good movie. I'm just never going to watch it because I don't think it needs to exist.
Give it a very brief review of Solo for me. Like, I personally, again, enjoyed it. I liked the story. It was lighthearted. It wasn't as serious as possibly some of the other films, which is good. It's nice to have a different tone. I have to admit with you there, though, I would have preferred the Solo movie as like a series of films, which hopefully Disney Plus is going to do, because the dynamic between the characters wasn't really there with some of the Solo characters, but there was some amazing moments in Solo. For example, you finally see where Han Solo constantly references in the originals the Kessel Run.
I did it in it once.
Well, I did the thing in 12 parsecs, blah blah blah, all that sort of thing. Well, we basically see that. And what because everybody was confused, like 12 parsecs, that's not speed, it's distance, blah 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 blah, and they actually correct that in Solo. They actually sort of explain what the Kessel Run is.
It's about going around a thing or something.
So
yeah, someone tried to explain that on Reddit years ago, and I like the idea that someone who made this film read that and went, "Wait a minute, we've got it, we've got our retcon."
So it was very clever the way they sort of adjusted and made that correct, and that is the best scene because spoilers for everybody who hasn't seen Solo, but the guy who plays Lando, I've forgotten the actor's name, amazing actor, is the star of the film.
Something Glover, isn't it?
Yes, he plays Lando Calrissian perfect. Now, if you're gonna watch Solo, just watch it for him, because that is amazing.
Childish Gambino, he's just great.
And you know how good he is because they hear him in like a canteen and they're playing sabacc, which is like the gambling version of poker in Star Wars, and you hear him before you see him, and you know straight away. Gambling, you know what I mean? Sorry, Star Wars version of poker in Star Wars. Anyway,
you threw me. That's why.
Sorry. No, I'm glad you pick up.
A drug dealer. Han Solo literally deals spice.
Yes.
Shut up.
That's on our end, not yours. If you're watching.
Yeah, that's me being got by the police because I've mentioned spice on the internet. But basically, that to me sets his tone up quite well because he's a bit of a dick. And then he actually has some character development over the whole thing. Star Wars has always had a constant problem with me in that they constantly use like padding dialogue that reference more interesting moments throughout the universe. So like there's a bit at the beginning of 5 while Leia and Han are having an argument. He goes, "Oh, and you're going to tell me that this is like that time back with the bounty hunter on Rigel 4 or whatever he says." It's like that's whatever story you just briefly gave us there is way more interesting than this boring argument I'm having to watch you two have.
Yeah.
Why
But
can't we see
it's-
more of that?
But it kind of creates that element that they're building a relationship, but then there's backstory there that instantly
and
you're going, I
appreciate
want to
it
know
for
that.
But like in that moment, I remember going, "Can you show us? Because you're just telling us at the moment, and that's
We will in the comics and the
yeah, exactly. Extended universe. Okay, fine.
But
I like what the movies did with the more recent ones. Obviously, 8 is a little bit controversial. I adored 7. 7 is my favorite Star Wars movie. I know that cinematically speaking, and in terms of like a story, 5 is one of the most concise and is debated as one of the best. But I love everything that 7 did. Yes, it was a bit derivative, and it had plot beats that were the same as Episode 5, but they did it really well, and it was quite safe. What I hate is that especially when you see the most recent trailer, which I guess we'll talk about more in depth shortly, but when you see the most recent trailer and you see how many beats J.J. Abrams was setting up with that first movie that just got abandoned by Rian Johnson and are then coming back now, I make it akin to, imagine you are a slightly obsessive, compulsive, clean freak child, okay? Maybe 5 years old. Imagine you are in your bedroom building a perfect Lego castle. And you're obsessive, remember? You are an OCD child. You are thinking about this massively. Now imagine your mum has invited the local div kid to come over for a play date that you don't like and don't want to be there. Now imagine that div kid comes in and kicks down your thing and goes, "Oh, we should put this bit here and this should go here, and oh, this guy could do this," and he ruins it. Now imagine you as the little boy going, "Ah, my palace!" That is what Rian Johnson has done to J.J. Abrams' thing. And now basically the mum has come to collect the div kid. The div kid's gone. And you're left there going, well, I can rebuild it, but most of it's broken and missing, and it won't be the same because I had a vision that you've ruined. And actually, I think that's a really decent analogy for that thing. It's a really good allegory for it, because it just feels like he just went in there and went, "Oh, no, I've got my own ideas, and mine are a little bit better and a bit more fancy." And
it's like as if when they were doing episode 7, trying to get the numbers right. Force Awakens to The Last Jedi. It's like as if no one actually talked to each other.
But they must have done.
Yeah.
They must have done, because J.J. Abrams was a consultant on it. But I wonder how much he was allowed to really say. Because he would have gone, what? Like, where are the Knights of Ren?
Yes.
I wrote the Knights of Ren. I even wrote dialogue about them. And are we just going to put them in the last one? That doesn't feel like enough time to flesh them out. I want to know who the fucking Knights of Ren are.
They sound really interesting.
They're the Knights of Ren. I want to know where the nomenclature of the Knights of Ren came from. Then we get more backstory for Kylo Ren, which makes him a more interesting villain. It's baffling that they didn't do this. Or if they did, they instead put the fucking casino bit in the movie. Episode 1 in its entirety is better than any of that casino plot line. It's so irrelevant. It's almost like what happens with Indiana Jones. Have you ever heard that theory about Indiana Jones and, is it Raiders of the Lost Ark, the one with the Holy Grail? Indiana Jones doesn't need to be there for any of it.
Yeah, that is
Everything
true.
happens in spite of him, which makes it a badly written movie. And the same can be said for this. It just seems to happen a lot, and I'm getting really frustrated with it, because I've seen this trailer that's just come out and gone, wow. That's really cool. But
that, I think,
why did I have to
shows
sit through 8 to get this?
How good J.J. Abrams actually is, because he's able to look at a scattered mess and, like you say, rebuild it. But not only that, you've kind of pissed on a lot of the fan base of Star Wars after The Last Jedi, and they hate you. They literally hated Disney for what they'd done. And what the fuck are you doing? Solo came out, and Ed just didn't bother going to go see it, and they lost a lot of faith. And with one video, which is 2 minutes long, has literally chained the fan base and gone, come on, guys, come on, just, and literally everybody's gathered around.
Job.
Yeah.
They did an amazing job, because I don't know if anyone's not seen it, or if anyone watching is the kind of person who really doesn't like any kind of remote spoiler, including trailers. This isn't the show for you.
Yeah, well, to be absolutely honest, this is let's just start that the first topic is this film and trailer and everything like that. Because to forewarn everybody, I do have the trailer going to be playing on in the background in the next 30 seconds. So if you don't want any spoilers, like Ed says, this isn't probably for you. So just forewarn you.
The final 8 seconds of the trailer managed to make it cooler than pretty much the entire of episode 8. Or it threw in more kind of curveballs. And that was really cool. I'm really excited to see what they do with that. Is it a mislead? Possibly. But we have a lot of beats to hit on. And we also have a poster that leaked, which showed the Knights of Ren being in it. And I'm super excited. The Knights of Ren, for some reason, were the thing I fixated on in the first movie. And I became obsessed with them.
I think probably was because we didn't know anything about it. It's a bit like the Boba Fett situation from Empire Strikes Back. We didn't know anything about him, and it's kind of like, oh my god, he looks so cool. What's his backstory? We didn't get one, and so that's why everybody sort of fixated upon him a little bit and made him almost put him on a bit of a pedestal. Kind of got let down in Return of the Jedi, but it's again the same with the Knights of Ren situation where we saw them very briefly and mentioned by Snoke saying, you are the leader of the Knights of Ren.
Master of the Knights of Ren.
Exactly. And then you go, who the flip are the Knights of Ren? They sound awesome. And that's
it.
We
see them in Rey's vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
So,
never mentioned again.
So we got the trailer showing in the background of the stream. Ed, is there any particular aspect? Obviously, we'll talk about the end of the trailer just in a moment. But is there any other aspects of the trailer that really stuck out to you that you thought, okay, interesting?
Well, for instance, if we're looking at the stuff that's on screen now, we've just seen Rey leaping over what appears to be the interceptor flown by Kylo Ren.
Mm-hmm.
If Kylo Ren wanted to kill her, he could easily have killed her in that thing.
Or shot her.
There's already something to imply there. What I like is that this trailer didn't really give too much away, but has shown various beats of the movie that look like they'll be quite exciting and action-filled. Are we going to get much lore or anything like that? Maybe. Are we going to learn that some of the twists about Rey's parents from the last movie weren't real? Possibly as well. Because I heard from an anonymous source whose uncle is one of the writers of the Star Wars movies, that it was originally written that she was going to be Luke's daughter. That was what they originally wrote.
Okay.
But they changed their mind on that as things went through. And apparently they do read online theories and things and do genuinely go, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe we should do that. Like, apparently that is legit and is what they really do. I don't know. It's difficult because I want so many things to happen, but at the same time, I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm aware it's only a movie.
It's great, though, isn't it?
Like we don't have more than one to flush the rest of this story out. And also, the title is The Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
So what does that imply?
Before I go any further, like
of Anakin.
Luke and James, if you guys want to cut in at any point, so I know you guys, like you say, we knowledge and stuff like. If you got any questions at all, just jump in, or if you got anything to say,
throw it in because I realize I'm just talking.
That's right. I'm really enjoying listening, actually. To be fair, I'm learning.
Big Star Wars nerd. I know too much about Star Wars. I got in a debate with Ace Trainer Liam during one of his streams about what's known as the Sith Rule of Two, and he started being like, "Yeah, it's a shit rule. It doesn't make sense." And I was there like,
read the Bane trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. Like it makes total sense just because
I'm pretty sure I know about that. Is that where there's always a? Is it always always opposite for it or something?
There's always a master and an apprentice.
There's always a master and there's always an apprentice.
Oh, got you. Yeah.
Because the Sith were defeated by the Jedi, and the Sith wanted to get massive revenge against the Jedi, but to hide their presence, instead of making another Sith order or planet of Sith on Korriban, they instead kept Darth Bane introduced what's known as the Rule of Two, which is there must always be a master to embody the dark side and a apprentice who wants to crave that power and therefore fuels them. Eventually, a lot of these apprentices end up killing the master, and so there is a kind of thought that it was always designed that way, that it's designed so that the apprentice must overtake the master to kind of make a new reinforced level of evil.
It's the same as any wolf pack or anything like that. You kill the leader and become the master.
Yeah, it is alpha male kind of thing.
The other issue as well, before Bane introduced the Rule of Two, Sith would band together, and there'd quite often a lot of Sith. Like there'd be thousands of them. The only problem was because the dark side will create jealousy and you'd crave more power, that instead of fighting the Jedi, they would find that they would turn on themselves and start fighting each other. So then eventually it'd just crumble apart. So the idea of the rule of two, like Ed says, that the master would embody the power and teach the apprentice, and the apprentice hopefully not only would learn from the master but would learn their own skills and their own knowledge, eventually becoming more powerful than the master. So the idea is that the stronger survive. So then it basically
so like the Sith just get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Essentially, the dark side embodiment of people utilizing the dark side, they'll always be the strongest.
Always be strong.
Because it's always being taken over. So it's literally survival of it's Darwinism. It's Sith Darwinism.
Yeah, full on Darwinism.
Yeah. And it's really quite cool because then you get Sith lords like Darth Nihilus, who, if anyone has played Knights of the Old Republic 2...
Is that the one with, like, the sort of... He has the bit around here, and he's, like, white?
That's Malgus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And basically, Darth Nihilus is on the cover of Knights of the Old Republic 2. He's one in the background with, like, a kind of whitish mask that ends, like, here. And Darth Nihilus had the ability to absorb life force and was known as the Planet Eater. Because he would literally absorb the energy from planets. I actually think Dragon Ball have recently taken that idea as influence and run with it, because there's a brand new character because Dragon Ball Super technically ended, but the manga's carried on and now they're bringing back the anime. But there's a character called Moro, the Planet Eater. Very similar to Darth Nihilus. It's very interesting. Yana said she wanted to keep the conversation going with a question. Which would you say is the most interesting and well-formed villain, and why? I hate nothing more than villains who are just evil for the sake of being evil. So for me, I've always loathed Anakin because I think he's very like, oh, everything's black and white. In my opinion, the Jedi are evil. And he sucked. But also it was portrayed very bad. It was directed badly and acted very badly, which doesn't help. Everyone hated Kylo Ren because he was the long-haired emo whiner baby. I thought he was There's Darth Nihilus. Thank you very much. He looks really cool.
Where? Say that again, Roger.
Roger just showed, right there. So that is Darth Nihilus for everyone who wants to see what Darth Nihilus looks like. And he would literally eat planets. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, sorry. Kylo Ren. I think Kylo Ren is very interesting because instead of this kind of metaphysical idea of conflict that you hear about with Anakin and see through, like, emotional, like, I slaughtered them. My mother. Like, he's really bad at acting, Hayden Christensen. But Adam Driver isn't. And he actually does an amazing job of displaying conflict. And that makes him a more interesting villain. Because it's rather than a guy who experienced some bad shit and then went, well, guess I should be evil then because I don't like the Jedi anymore. He actually goes, I see, like, I was training in the light side, but I was betrayed by my master. And I went to where I was being called to, which was the dark side. And I'm honing this power, but at the same time, I don't know if I want this power. To secure my place in this, I have to kill my own father. And I don't know if I want to do that. But he forces himself to do that. And even doing that, the act splits him in two. And that was even referenced in dialogue by Snoke. He goes, I killed Han Solo. And he goes, and look at you. The act split you in two. It's really well done. And the conflict that he then feels in 8 with finding this bond with Rey, it's really cool. It's really in depth. And you see him developing as a person and you see their relationship develop. And it all crumbles at the end when you realize that the reason they've both been in that relationship together is for different reasons. She was wanting to take him and turn him to the light so that they can work together. He was wanting the opposite. He wanted to turn her to the dark so they could rule together. And it only comes to a T at the last minute. And then you see his descent as maybe the audience already kind of knew, but as you see him then descend from this is what I want to now I'm manic and this is what I want. And you also see him when he shouts at the army to attack Luke Skywalker, the anger in his eyes.
Lost all control
and he loses control about it. Yep. He's very restrained a lot. Actually, no, he's not very restrained a lot of times. Sorry. He can be, but actually you see him have these outward explosions of anger, like those bits where he slashes up the wall. That was a really cool moment. But I like those because you don't, other than just, that someone's angry or him choking you a bit, you see a childish outburst of anger, which adds more depth to his character.
Which also
that's
sort of
cool.
delivers to him not probably like again the people. There's a lot of books now starting to come out, and it actually start referencing that he didn't have a proper childhood either, because obviously his mother was a politician, his dad didn't really.
Smuggler.
He was a smuggler, but he was a dad at the beginning, but didn't really. He loved his son, but he didn't want to be that. He wanted to be a smuggler. He craved adventure. So his parents weren't really there initially for him, and then sort of passed him on to his uncle, who then trained him to be a Jedi, who are not supposed to express emotion. And then when he finally...
Very emotional.
Yeah, he's got these moments of pent-up frustration and anger, and he just doesn't know how to deal with him, and just, I'm going to smash this console.
Yeah. And those kind of outward, but the builds and then the explosions are really satisfying to see. So if that answers your question, Yana, that's who I personally think... Well, that's what I thought made a cool villain within the scope of the Star Wars universe that we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because all the others have just sort of just been angry.
It's very black and white. Like,
Yeah.
this guy's evil and this guy's good, and there's not really a lot of depth to it. Palpatine's one, maybe you kind of have to read a bit more into to go, oh, I guess there is kind of a cool side to it, but actually really, like, from the outward stuff that you get from purely the movies, it's not very interesting.
I think, like, you see, like for Luke and James, like, what are your guys been like? When you, is there any particular baddies that you've seen in the films that jump out to you that you go? Obviously, you don't need to go too much depth if you don't wish to, but like, is there any particular ones that jump out to you that really think like you go, that's a cool baddie?
The Rancor.
I thought the stuff. I guess like the Darth Vader turning out to be his father was pretty cool.
Mhm.
Like, as in, that would have been pretty epic at the time. Like, everyone goes to see this film and then that happens.
I think that's a cool way of adding even more depth to a villain. That you did, like, basically Darth Vader was just this big faceless thing until, you're right, that big twist.
But it was like, because it's the opposite of the dark. Obviously, the dark side make you kill your father. The light side is now killing their father. So it's they're both trying to, you know.
That is true. That's an interesting perspective on it.
That's what I thought was cool about it, because it flipped it.
Now, one of the favorite scenes for me certainly from the prequels, admittedly, Darth Maul's fight scene at the end of the Phantom Menace is probably one of the best lightsaber fights in all of the films. Darth Maul's pretty cool. Watch the Clone Wars and the Rebels if you want to know more about his character. Amazing. But one of the best scenes in the prequels that I personally enjoy, which led on to me reading one of the books, which is unfortunately no longer canon, is when Anakin sat next to Palpatine and they're watching a theater sort of play.
Okay, cool.
And he talks about Darth Plagueis the Wise, and he doesn't say it, but we basically find out that Darth Plagueis the Wise was Darth Sidious's master, and he learnt the power of manipulating midichlorians, which obviously is to do with the Force, with inside your body, and everything like that. And he was able to stop people from dying, which is kind of the temptation he gives to Anakin to come over to the dark side, because he's having visions of Padme, his wife, dying. And you again, it's one of those sort of, like Ed says, when you get given a tidbit of information about something within Star Wars, which is kind of just said, and then nothing else in all of the other films really mentions that character. And they did it with Darth Plagueis. And if you ever want to know more about this character, read the book Darth Plagueis, which it explains his character a lot more and who he is, and it's just an amazing story. And like I said, he doesn't actually figure out how to manipulate midichlorians until at the end of the book, like right at the end, and that is when Darth Sidious actually kills him. And Darth Sidious doesn't actually spend the time, at least in that book, it's not classed as canon anymore, but he doesn't actually spend the time to find out what Darth Plagueis actually knows about keeping people alive or anything like that. He literally just kills him when he's asleep.
Doesn't know that information.
No, he
Can
doesn't
I
know
just
that
ask
information.
something?
Go for it.
You said obviously that book, you read a book and it was no longer canon.
Mm-hmm.
You know the Force Unleashed game?
They are non-canon.
They're non-canon. Okay.
Mhm.
But they are bloody brilliant games.
They are great, right?
I loved those games. In fact, if I could go back and play... In fact, I think I bought them in
So are
like
they
one of
just
those
a
Steam
theory?
sales.
Are they just
A
like an
game
idea?
theory.
Yeah, but like obviously he's a Darth Vader because he's Darth Vader's apprentice, or is he
They're a
Darth Vader?
what-if
It failed.
scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it features multiple references, like as the apprentice in the Force Unleashed games is called Starkiller.
Yeah,
which is actually
and he pulls down a Star Destroyer out of the sky as well, which is
mentioned in what's his name? Is it Stephen Colbert? He did an interview. He was the one hosting the live Star Wars celebration the other night when they did the Star Wars 9 trailer, and he asked a question to the cast. Are there any new force powers? Like how in 8 we saw that Luke projects himself to the other side of the galaxy. Are we going to see anything in this? For example, does Rey pull down a Star Destroyer with just the Force? And I that instantly made me go, that's either weird coincidence or he's definitely played that game or watched a child play that game. Because it's
quite early on, isn't it?
That's a specific moment, and it was fucking incredible.
Yes.
But it's interesting that because Luke Skywalker's name was going to be Luke Starkiller originally. So it's interesting that was a reference to him to make him Starkiller. But then also Starkiller Base was the name of the 2.0 Death Star. Yep. So there's a lot of woven in things here. I'd like to think some of these stuff. Also, I think Force Unleashed 2 featured Leia with Jedi training.
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
I did play it though. I can't remember.
You fight her. She has a yellow lightsaber or an orange lightsaber, and she can use the Force. And you fight Luke Skywalker as well as Starkiller, as the Sith Lord Starkiller, and you force them to turn to the dark side midway through the fight because you make them give into their anger, and then you fight a more powerful version of them. And those are really cool moments.
I love playing as Vader in games because he just has that kind of walk where nothing's going to stop him. He just walks like with such like he's a tank basically. He's super slow, but like he just like when you play Force Unleashed and even Battlefront 2 is a more recent example. I think it's Battlefront 2. Like he's got this really quite powerful
ominous presence.
Yeah,
yes,
like
that's a really good way of putting it.
I really enjoy that about him.
It's like that first moment when you first ever see Darth Vader in Episode 4, The New Hope, and he steps out of the doorway, and it's literally all the stormtroopers stop, go into like salute mode, like stand there at attention, and he just stands, he just looks from like side to side at the corridor. Oh, dead rebels! He goes, just keeps walking, and you're just like, who the hell is? And obviously, when it originally got released in 1970s, everybody's like, oh, he's the main baddie. But no, I got to admit, Darth Vader has to be one of the obviously most iconic baddies of the whole of Star Wars. But this takes it on to the end of the trailer, which was shown during Star Wars Celebration. So we hear the voiceover of Luke Skywalker say, "We're never truly gone." Oh, something along those lines. I may not be exactly saying the correct quote.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah.
And you see Rey and a couple of others. I believe there's BB-8 and maybe Poe is there as well. And they're looking across the horizon, and then you see the wreckage of the Death Star, which looks like it possibly could be on the planet Endor.
So and this is Death Star 2, right?
Yeah, this Death Star 2.
Death Star 2, yeah.
And they look across it, and next minute you hear the Emperor's cackling laugh over the trailer. And when I first saw this, I was like, oh my god, that's the Emperor. But then part of me went, is it just for the trailer? Is it a bit of like a, haha, we're never truly gone, evil? But then during the Star Wars Celebration, Ian McDermott, who plays the Emperor, came out on stage himself.
His mic wasn't turned on.
Yes. And then just smiled and went, roll it again. And then they showed the trailer again. And
his acting's better in this one. His acting in the third Star Wars movie is, admittedly, again, I will jump back to, it was directed horrifically by a man who just stopped caring by that point. But do you remember the moment where he's being confronted by Mace Windu and he's on the ground and he starts going, and then he goes, no, you will die. It's just shit. It's just shit. Like, that man is classically trained and he did that. And you're like, that's unacceptable. And by now, everyone must have told you that throughout every convention appearance you've ever been at. So by this point, surely he's gotten better.
Hopefully.
And it'll be better crafted, and his performance and his reason for being there will be better.
This is like the unfortunate thing with same with the bad acting and everything, obviously bad directing of episode 3. Which the unfortunate thing is with that scene, if you go back like 5 minutes and then you see Mace Windu walking with the 2 Jedi either side of him and confront him, the best line from that film is, "Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?" And it's like, and instantly then it's the first time that Sidious has really in front of not Anakin, but like of that's it, it's gone. And it's like, are you?
It definitely comes out with the "I am the Senate."
And that scene is just chilling. Before the fight scene with Mace Windu is crap, but it's like that where you just sat there.
That's a cool moment because you're right. It's the one moment that facade completely drops, and then he's being like frowny and evil and about with his voice, you know.
And that's when like Senator Palpatine and the Darth Sidious become one. And that's like that scene is the conversion. The fight, like I said, the fight scene with Mace Windu was terrible. Like you said, with the like that can go. But before that, I think that's one of the best moments from episode 3, personally. But this makes it very interesting. Like you said, like the building blocks of episode 7 and then 8 kind of ruining that. And like you say, J.J. Abrams having to build those blocks back up makes some really interesting theories of what's happening. Like, is Palpatine still alive? Has he managed to survive not only being dropped by Darth Vader over the edge and then literally vaporizing, and then the Death Star blowing up and then crash landing onto a planet? Is he alive, or is he some form of Force ghost?
He's got to be a Force ghost. He won't be alive. But bear in mind, if that's Luke saying that, he is also dead. So that will be an implication of I'm a Force ghost. We have never seen a dark side Force ghost in this canon. We have in Rebels because Yoda confronts Darth Bane.
Yep.
But we've never really seen a dark side ghost. And that is quite an interesting idea because in this trilogy they are trying to explore things that they'd never really done or try and retcon things that the fans have always had a problem with, and that could very easily be seen as one that we've only ever seen light side Force ghosts.
I tweeted a thing out actually as soon as I watched the trailer, and it's actually a quote from Yoda from The Phantom Menace, and it says, "There are always two. There are a master and an apprentice." And Mace Windu turns to him, "Well, which one did we destroy? Yes. The master or the apprentice?" And that was in reference to Snoke. I was referencing that about Snoke because initially when Snoke dies and gets chopped in half by Kylo, you're thinking, oh, that's the main baddie over, but is there some form of relationship between Snoke? Maybe Snoke was he possessed
Do you think
by
Snoke
the Emperor?
Was an apprentice?
An apprentice, he could be possessed. It could be literally a channel for the Emperor at the time. That's maybe why Snoke was so ridiculously powerful, because maybe the Emperor not only was using his Force powers, but using Snoke's combined to be able to lift Rey up and like pretty much torture it in midair. It's quite interesting. I think, like Ed says, they're really trying to push it with the new films of what the Force can do. And I think they could venture into some really interesting areas with the Emperor now. I just hope they don't just go, he's actually still alive, everybody, and he walks out just like, hi.
Hi there. Just waving and smiling.
Been me all along.
With one of those like American 70s sitcom, like everyone goes, woo! Yeah! When he walks on.
Hey, did you miss me? Oh!
Honey, I'm home.
Do it.
Honey, I am the Senate.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else, actually. There was one disappointment that I got from the trailer when you see Rey with Luke Skywalker, which is lightsaber, which has been plugged... Well, Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber has been stuck back together. I was kind of hoping for a double-bladed lightsaber. Just because we've seen her with
I was hoping she would do something with her staff, or at least like be able to snap it in two. And then...
Because it's been pushing for like she's always had a stick when she hasn't had the lightsaber, and I kind of thought, well, maybe she might. My theory, I said to one of my friends, was, wouldn't it be amazing if they mirrored the last fight from the Phantom Menace, but in the Sorry, in the first film, the last fight from the Phantom Menace into the end of this one, where basically we saw Darth Maul appear. It goes, the Jewel of the Fates music appears, the doors open, you see Darth Maul light both ends. What happens if they mirrored that with Rey, but at the end of this one? So, for example, you see Kylo, whoever, turn around, the doors open up, you hear the Jewel of the Fates, she knocks back the hood and lights the double-bladed lightsaber, but blue. Now that would have been
Not
amazing.
A bad shout.
Yeah, I'd love that moment because it would have been like a two bookends of a saga of like a bit of a wink and a nod of we'd not seen the double-bladed lightsaber since the first film.
My housemate Harry thinks he's stuck by this from the first film that the new generation were in, like Daisy Ridley and all that. He thinks Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. If he's right, I'll eat my hat. But there's a lot. Basically, like he bases a lot of it on the physicality of the way she does her attacks, which is very similar to the way he does. Which you can't necessarily read too much into that.
That's a fair point, actually.
But she's also incredibly strong with the Force, which would be, similar to someone like Sheev Palpatine, who's very, very strong. And
he had a lot of money. He was probably throwing it around left, right, and center.
My big issue with it is it then, kind of like you've just said there, in a way, it then adds the question of, well, then who's his daughter? Because that's his granddaughter. There's no way it's his daughter. Like that, Rey would not be the Emperor's daughter. Because, think how much older Luke is now. Like that time doesn't work out.
I do think we're going to find out something a little bit more from Rey's parents because it's not showing up just yet, but in the trailer, you do see a ship fly past the screen and go towards a city very briefly. And it looks very similar to the ship that Rey has in her flashback of her parents leaving Jakku. It's very brief. It's like 2 seconds. And it's got blue... what do you call it? What pushes it along? Afterburn, thank you. Thrusters at the back, and it's the same position. The shape of the ship is very similar to her vision. I think they call it a skyhopper. And it's weird how we haven't seen that ship at all in any of the films, except it's just showing now, actually. And it's weird how we haven't seen that ship before, and then now we've seen it very briefly in this reveal trailer, which it seemed very out of place in comparison to everything else. So that seemed quite intriguing that they might possibly get that maybe Kylo Ren was lying to Rey about her parentage before, just to try and bring her over to the dark side, perhaps.
Do you think Kylo's not actually her relation then?
I don't think she's a Skywalker.
I think she's a Skywalker. I think that's the obvious way for them to go with it. I think
it's obvious, and that's probably why.
Would be a misdirect. Because 8 were when it came out, I was a bit like, oh, but at least it makes sense for this. Like, it makes sense. Like having her be nobody, but being able to challenge the blood descendant of literally the pure embodiment of the Force. Let's not forget, Darth Vader was literally made by the Force. Anakin didn't have a dad. He was just holy spirited into fucking whatever.
Jesus Christ, it is.
Shmi Skywalker. Like literally, she was impregnated by the Holy Spirit and by the Force. So to be challenged as the descendant of the pure Force by a nobody is a great idea. It's a really strong plot point, very strong message, and also the film ends with even these little Force-sensitive kids who are nobodies will be able to challenge even the legendary Skywalker bloodline. Well, and I liked that.
One last theory that I have read, which does sound quite interesting, and that's to do with the name, the Rise of Skywalker. Now, this plays into the idea that we haven't heard Rey's second name. And like I said, I don't think she is a Skywalker, but I don't believe she knows a second name. So
doesn't mean she's not a Skywalker, though.
I know, but what going with this theory, so to say, what I've read, and I'm kind of going with it sounds very interesting, is that obviously her first name's Rey, but the idea of the rise of Skywalker isn't actually that a Skywalker will rise, it's that a new order will rise called Skywalker. Now, this is actually in referral to a book which is to do with Admiral Thrawn, who's the blue guy from Rebels. He's a Chiss, And he's from a part of space which is very dangerous. It's really like you can't really travel there because there's a lot of asteroids and stuff like that. It's very dangerous to fly.
Right, okay.
And they used to, groups of Force users used to go to that area of space and travel it. But the only way they could travel it was using the Force. And they used to call them Skywalkers. And so the theory is that she will then, if you become the Jedi will no longer be, the Sith will no longer be, but the Skywalkers will be an embodiment of the light and the dark side to create a new order. And you will take the name upon Rey Skywalker. I am a Skywalker. And that's the idea of Rise of Skywalker.
I like it. Makes total sense to me. I could totally see that being a thing.
It sounded really interesting, like a different way of doing it. So
I actually think that's got some actual legs to it. I really think that could be a thing that they do. And they make because Grey Jedis have been constantly referenced in Rebels and things. So it's and they mentioned
Rebels is quite important, isn't it? A lot of people talk about Rebels like it's very,
good fun.
A lot of lore in it, and that's why people like it.
Very lore heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes us into the first topic. That was a long topic.
A lot to discuss.
So many people talking comments. Sorry that I haven't read them all, but if you guys have got any theories about the upcoming Star Wars Episode 9, obviously, like I say, we've only had a teaser trailer. We haven't had a full trailer, so we're kind of clutching at straws. But this is what I love about Star Wars, is because we can make theories up, we can come up with stories ourselves. And the film, when it finally comes out, may not ever hit any of our expectations of or any of the ideas that we come up with. But this is why I love Star Wars and love talking about it. Yana says, how are you doing there, Jim and Lukey? Still alive?
Oh yeah, I am listening. I am interested. Obviously, as I said, I am a fan, but I just don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, there's no point me chiming in.
I'll be interested in listening. But this is, as a reference point, like this is why I love Halo, because Halo has a surface level fan base and then a wider fan base. Mm-hmm. Halo has so much lore in it; it's insane. You've just got to dive in and be willing to go to comics and fan theories and obviously the actual books themselves and the games and things like that. So because Halo, the world of Halo is actually pretty brutal.
See, I've never really got into Halo, I have to admit. Like I mentioned to you guys and Lisa, I don't watch, for example, Game of Thrones. I can't get into Game of Thrones. I don't know why.
Well, for example, like one of their choice, the way they choose their people for the Spartan program is they'll kidnap a child when they're like 3 years old, replace them with a clone, and then take them away, and then train them. At 4 years old, they're taken up into the air and forced to parachute out of a plane. The ones that jump then obviously are okay. The ones that don't jump are forced out, and then if they survive the fall, they will then carry on in the program.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
Nuts.
Basically, it's like we need brave people. We need people that are not going to hesitate. And
if you bounce and survive, you're in.
I mean, they still have the chance to open their parachute, but obviously when they're scared and 4 years old and thrown out of a plane.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And there's all sorts of things like that. And like how the actual... because there's rebels in Halo as well.
I got to admit, the franchise of Halo does really interest me. I've never really been... Obviously, I've never been to Xbox, so it's kind of passed me by.
Yeah. Well, the Covenant's a very new war. They've actually been fighting humans for hundreds of years. Like, they've been fighting amongst themselves, and it's all the lore in that as well.
The Master Chief Collection's coming over to PC, though, right?
Yes, one by one, yeah. And
starting with Reach.
Yes, it comes in order as well, which is pretty cool.
I might have to have a little...
Because obviously, like Star Wars, we had to watch them in order that they came in. Whereas now new fans can play them in the order that the story goes in, which I think is a lot better.
Reach was quite an interesting one because it featured a lot. I remember a lot of people being mental about spoilers in Reach because it had quite an in-depth storyline. But I mean, basically, the whole thing is that you start.
We knew the ending the whole time.
Well, of course you did. The opening shot of the game was a helmet on the ground with a.
Well, it was a book before it was a game anyway. So.
Well, interesting because I was wondering why in Halo 1 or 3, I never played 2. They actually go, God, this is just like Reach all over again. And I remember playing that after Reach had come out, and I was like, "There's no way they like that." I was like, "Wow, they even set up."
Halo 1 is immediately after Reach.
Yeah,
immediately. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
So it might have been
escape
3.
Reach and then crash on Halo.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's where Halo 1 starts. That's why they're running. That's why the Covenant attacked them.
I got
See,
to admit,
I've played all those, but I just don't know the story. And then when 343 took over, I tried to get into the new trilogy thinking, well, they're carrying on the story, but without me having to know that stuff. And I just hated it.
See, Master Chief's on Reach the whole time, the whole game. He's just in cryostasis on the ship. Because he's a new Spartan. He's a new grade of Spartan.
Why
Dr. Halsey,
if he's only...
because he was a secret program by her.
Right, okay.
All of the Spartans were government, projects.
It does sound
This
really
was
cool.
her own personal project, because she was the one that created the Spartan program.
Yes, I remember seeing that's at the beginning of 4. There's the...
This is actually, weirdly enough, her journal from the game. Like,
oh wow, you are a big Halo.
You should legitimately do a Halo show.
That would be
Jim.
amazing.
It has like
You
all
could
of
ask him
her
anything.
notes
Why
and
haven't
everything
you
like
done
that in it.
Halo lore videos on?
Jim knows pretty much everything, to be fair.
I've watched those. I want to learn more about it.
Yeah, I got to admit, if you created a channel dedicated to that and just giving little aspects of information.
So
Call
I
it
can't say the word,
Halo.
like, so into it. But like,
Halo!
oh, dude, all of the
Hello!
songs are adorable.
Hello!
Hello. It's a Jane.
Like here, look, she talks about Cortana.
Wow.
Because Cortana is the AI in Halo is all. I know we've gone on a tangent here. My
No,
last
it's fine.
comment.
Go for it. All right.
The AI in Halo has always been just AI in itself. They're created from synthetic DNA.
Love the idea they go.
However, Dr. Halsey uses her own DNA to create Cortana.
Interesting.
That's why in Halo 5...
Why does she go batshit? Is that because
AIs
AI have
a life
atrophy?
expectancy.
Yeah. Okay,
yes.
right.
So as time goes on, AI breaks down.
She goes
And
batshit.
eventually it breaks down, but she can be saved. There's no way to stop that normally. But however, because she's made from human DNA, not synthetic, she can be revived. She can be made again with all of her memories, everything, just new. But she has to get to Dr. Halsey to do that.
I have to admit, with the Master Chief Collection coming over to PC, I think this will be a great time for me to step into Halo.
You should jump in so much.
And I like the idea, like you say, it's released in order, so I don't like. That's one thing that I've always found with some franchises that have been around for so long, is you feel a little bit overwhelmed with information. A bit like probably you guys a little bit with Star Wars, with me and Ed going for it, was that it can be sometimes a little bit too much. Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, the biggest break in Halo at the moment, which is why I can't wait for the next game, is Cortana in the last game. Spoiler alert. Cortana in the very last one just goes fully batshit and turns evil. So now she's somewhere in the universe. You don't know where. She is somewhere in the universe, and she's basically fully lost it. And you don't know whether she's now fully evil and doesn't have any good in her whatsoever. You don't know if she's now trying to get back to Halsey to get fixed. But she's fully lost it, like completely.
Well,
and it's so interesting.
Keeping with the video game talk, let's move over onto Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which also was shown during the Star Wars celebration at the weekend. This is from Respawn Entertainment, obviously EA, one of the ones that they didn't cancel. And so we got a cinematic trailer. Unfortunately, no gameplay trailer, but it shows off the new character of Carl Kestis. Carl Kestis.
Something like I didn't.
Yeah.
I never heard the surname.
Played by Cameron Monaghan. That a good guy? Yana's a big fan.
Yes, the guy who's from Gotham.
He's from Gotham. So he's going to be the next one.
Misha Collins is at Comic-Con.
Who?
Misha Collins. Yana know who that is. He's at Comic-Con this year.
So it's set with... I don't think they actually set exactly how many years after Episode 3 of the Order 66, but I'm guessing it's around about 3 years after or something like that.
No, it's a lot more recent because
Was
it
it more
features,
recent?
features him finding an Order 66.
Right.
It's
So
gotta be
it's fairly soon then. And he's a young guy with Force abilities. Not entirely sure. Like, I presume he must have been an apprentice or a Padawan within the Jedi Order. Again, we're very limited on information really on this, but he is a Force user who is in hiding. Maybe a youngling, which Anakin didn't kill in the council chambers, and he has been working as a scrapper. And then it shows in the cinematic trailer that he helps possibly a friend. We don't know whether or not all this in the cinematic trailer will be finally in the game, but he shows in that trailer that he helps someone from falling, and he is obviously then discovered to be a Force user. And then this is where it starts to show that it's going to pull in from Rebels and some of the comics, because we see one of the Inquisitors, which is the second sister from Rebels, which I believe
rather than the seventh sister from Clone Wars.
So my Rebels information is a little bit limited because I missed a few seasons. So I saw the beginning of the Rebels and then I saw like the last season. So the middle bit I'm a little bit lost on. But I do know the Inquisitors, and so they're popping up. They're basically ex-Jedi that have been turned over to the dark side, but are not as strong as Darth Vader or as the Emperor, and kind of tools for the Emperor and Darth Vader to go out into the galaxy and find all the hidden Jedi, basically just to mop up and make sure none of them are alive still. We also see some Purge troopers, which are first introduced, I believe, in the Darth Vader comics, which are elite clone troopers. They were even still being used when stormtroopers were around, and they are purposely trained to fight Jedi. I believe in the Darth Vader comic, they find a Jedi, and he uses the Force to initiate because they all have microchips in them from Order 66 when they turn on the Jedi. He actually, in the comic, uses the Force to switch it on in their brain, and they turn on the Inquisitor, and actually the Inquisitor nearly gets killed because of the Purge troopers turning on her. A little bit of a lore background there. There's also a new character called his droid companion, BD-1. Again, a very limited amount of information what we know on this. We also get it looks like the Jedi Knight Master, which will do a lot of training, which is, I believe, called Kera or Sarah. So anyway, I'm giving you a little bit of background on the trailer. Have you guys seen this trailer now?
I've watched it.
Yes.
Personal thoughts on it?
I mean, it doesn't give a lot away, so
No, it really doesn't.
Very hard to. I mean, I'm interested in it, but we've all been burnt by EA, so
it features one in-engine clip, I will say, or at least it looked like an in-engine clip, which is good because you cannot tell anything about games from a pre-rendered cutscene. They might as well show you Shrek. It really has nothing to do with what
Battlefront 2 looks amazing. Battlefront 1 looks amazing.
In fact, it's on screen. It was on screen as I said that. Was the one moment
is that where
really
he's pushing?
That bit is until the bit where he's backing against the fan. A bit of that looked in-engine. So that could be quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. My personal opinions of the graphics, I don't think it actually looks that good.
Tell that from.
I know. Just going by cinematics of what the cinematic that they've shown. When you look quite close at the characters, I don't think the graphics look overly amazing in the cinematic. I was a bit like his hair looks a bit Play-Doh-y. And a bit anime, I guess, in some ways. It's a bit rigid, and I was a bit sort of shocked that they showed that as a cinematic. It is scheduled to release at the end of this year, I believe. Did it say
15th of the 11th?
15th of November. Thank you very much, James. I don't think it'll come out this year. I think it's going to be delayed and pushed to the beginning of next year.
I don't mind games being delayed if there's a reason and if it means we get a better product. Well, I don't
absolutely.
like games being pushed back indefinitely and then never appearing, like Code Vein.
Huh.
Where's Code Vein?
Yeah, what happened to Code Vein?
What's happened to Code Vein? Does anybody know where Code Vein's gone? Because it was From Software's new thing.
It was like Huxley, wasn't it?
Weird.
Yeah.
I'm going to Google it now. Code Vein.
I'm doing it as well.
So obviously, EA's
2 years ago they announced this. What the fuck? Is this just never coming out?
So I was reading the chat.
It's apparently coming at some point this year. They've clearly cancelled that.
So obviously it's like in the look of the trailer, like the face animations look good. Yeah, there's aspects of the trailer look really amazing, and then there's other aspects that look really clunky and a little bit unpolished and a bit unfinished. It just seemed weird that they would show those aspects off in the trailer. It's almost like as if they'd done half the trailer and was like, we need a bit more, and threw a few more scenes in, which just didn't look as clean cut. There's certain aspects of it sound like I'm sort of having to break a lot of it down in theory again. So, for example, in one of the scenes, we actually see him break through a door, and you see look like a coffin or a sarcophagus with a Jedi symbol on it, which makes me believe that we may not get a lightsaber for a little while, and we learn about the Force and the abilities, and maybe go through that, or maybe get a vibroblade or something like that, and then you see him pick up a lightsaber, which is already looks like not one that he's made. He's found one, possibly from an ancient, I'm thinking, sarcophagus, maybe. And the other reason why I say that is because the look of the lightsaber doesn't look like a one from the Phantom Menace or the Clone Wars. It looks quite an old-looking lightsaber.
It's a very unique design, you're right.
Yeah, like if you look at it at the end of it, it has like 2 teeth bits sticking up. Now, that does reminisce for me some of the lightsabers from Knights of the Old Republic, and I go as far as back as the Exar Kun comics, where his lightsaber did have like teeth bits sticking up around the edges and stuff and coming up like that, and that's why I was like, and then also at the bottom of the lightsaber it looks blown out, like as if it's been damaged, which again then made me start to think possibly was it at one time a double-bladed lightsaber and got damaged and broken in half? Because the Jedi used to use double-bladed lightsabers for training purposes for their apprentices. Possibly this was an old Republic lightsaber of some sort.
Training lightsaber or something, maybe.
Because
or maybe it got blown out and damaged.
Is that why it's all burnt at the end?
Possibly, yeah. It'd be interesting to see if that's why it's damaged at the bottom. The only thing is, which I was a bit questioning as well, like this might be that you might have this from like the sarcophagus or something like that, or like why it was weird that we saw something like that. It's because, as far as I'm aware, the Jedi were, if their bodies were still there, if they didn't float off like Yoda and all that, was that they would be burned like Qui-Gon Jinn and Naboo. Now, it was always the Sith that was entombed and put in sarcophaguses, and that's why a lot of the Legends series, a lot of always weird dark side spirits around some of these tombs.
Like Bane when he's Yoda.
So it was very unusual that there's tombs of Jedis, which makes me think that this is going, that he's probably discovering things from Jedi from a long time ago, where they don't, maybe some of the, let's say, maybe burning of the Jedi was introduced much later on. Another thing I was going to go with. So possibly the lightsaber might be introduced a little bit further down the line, not right at the beginning, which would be quite interesting to do. A little bit like Knights of the Old Republic, where you'd have to build a lightsaber.
Go on Korriban, and you literally go through all the Sith tombs, which are amazing. And then I think you can find some of their weapons.
Don't you do Jedi training as well?
Yes.
You sneak onto Korriban and pretend to be a Sith in training, because it's back in the Old Republic where the Sith.
Don't he did just get taken though, don't he, and get trained by a Yoda wannabe, don't he, on is it Tollus?
No.
Tollus?
You get taken, you get brought by Bastila to Tullus.
And then there's like a council secondary group.
There's a Yoda-esque guy, but they all decide whether or not to teach you. I think initially they say no.
There's a game where you go to a Jedi temple and you have to find a crystal for your lightsaber. Is that one of the RPG games?
It's not Knights of the Old Republic, is it? No, sorry, Knights of the Old Republic. What's the MMO? Star Wars.
The Old Republic.
The Old Republic. The MMO.
I thought it was.
It could be Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy.
I mean, this was on
a great game.
I think it was on console though. Is it a console game?
Could have been one of the Jedi Knight series of games, because they were over on GameCube.
Jedi Knight, yeah. Honestly, like I still remember. I remember every detail of Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy.
Thank you, Yana. Yana's heading off.
Something that's really attached me to this game is the fact that it actually features one of the lead devs of the God of War series, who is a guy called Stig Asmussen. And the fact that he's that he's involved, I think he's the game director. So bear in mind, we've got the old Devil May Cry rip-off series, God of War, being brought to the same realm as Respawn's games, which are all the, what are they called? Well, I can't remember them. Titanfall 1 and 2 and Apex Legends, all of which are very well polished games. They may not be the most popular, but for what they are, they do their job very well. And so that's one reason why I'm looking forward to this. You've got a guy whose speciality is combat in a world where everything is as well polished as it was by the rest of Respawn. So we have a potential to have a really decent story with some really good gameplay. And that's exciting.
Yeah, I could say I'm I'm ready for a single player Star Wars game now. I want some story. I want a little bit of lore told to me. Like I said, with this lightsaber, the idea that possibly maybe hunting it down makes sense because I believe the Emperor and Darth Vader kept a lockdown on the kyber crystals, which went inside the lightsaber to help create them. And that's why Luke Skywalker actually creates his own lightsaber for the Return of the Jedi. He manufactures his own kyber crystal and nearly kills himself to make the green one. And because I
actually never knew the story behind that.
Obviously, again, not knowing exactly what's canon, but originally, obviously, he loses his hand and his father's lightsaber when Darth Vader chops it off. And he goes into a seclusion a little bit and decides to go back to Obi-Wan Kenobi's house on Tatooine. And when he's there, he comes across some parchment or information that tells him how to build a lightsaber. So he gets all the other parts and scavenges around Tatooine and Mos Eisley and Mos Espa and builds one, but he needs the kyber crystal, which is what basically generates the blade. And he can't go get one off the black market because they literally can't find them. And if you went looking for one and started asking around, basically it puts a massive flag in the air that you are there and the Emperor will find you and send people to go kill you. So he decides in Obi-Wan's hut to try and create one. And he literally, if it's a minuscule off, it would explode and basically take his whole arm off and probably take half of his body out. That's why Kylo Ren actually has a broken kyber crystal in his lightsaber and has to have the exhaust comes out the side to release energy, and that's why it crackles.
Fucking rad though. Yeah. But also, I think they also did Kylo Ren's one as a visual metaphor for his instability.
Mm-hmm.
So are they like exhausts effectively?
Those little side chamber bits for him, yeah, because the others don't need them, and that's why the blade crackles and isn't a straight blade. It's got all these waves coming around the outsides because, as Roger said, it's not stable. Yeah. That's also the reason it's the final step of your training in Jedi training is making the lightsaber, and you're not meant to do it with your hands. You do it with the Force.
Mm-hmm. Because it can literally it can explode, so you've got to be very careful.
If you're in touch with the Force enough and you've been training in combat enough, the combat's sort of irrelevant at this point, but if you're trained enough in the Force, you should be able to put that together perfectly in one fell swoop, and if you don't, you're not ready. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to see those kind of things being still referenced in the movies these days. I like that in lore.
One thing about the lore, actually talking about lightsaber while we're here, not relevant to anything we're on about, but the red lightsabers of before, they were just introduced that they were just red crystals. That's no longer the case.
They've been tainted, aren't they?
Yes, you bleed the dark side into them, which I found really interesting, which may explain why Kylo Ren's is cracked, because obviously he's a very unstable person. He wasn't able to maybe possibly bleed it correctly.
It's like your personality, basically. It's kind of like, or your frame of mind or mindset, or
Was it true that Samuel Jackson had changed
purple
his lightsaber color?
Yeah,
he never changed it. They asked him what color he wanted, and he said, "Make it purple."
Because he wanted to make sure that the people could see him on screen, so he knows which one he was. Which is fair enough. Fair enough. Charles has just headed off, so I don't know if he's still there, but thank you so much, Charles, for joining us. Thanks.
See you later, my dude.
Oh God.
What's up? What's up?
A spire just collapsed on Notre Dame. It's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
The whole. I don't know. Sorry if anyone's not up to date. Notre Dame, the famous cathedral in France, is on fire.
And
it's a 12th century cathedral. It's completely ablaze.
Oh yeah, it's gone.
Oh.
Gone.
And one of the spires has collapsed.
Oh, one of the spires collapsed.
Fuck.
That's like a piece of history just gone.
Yes.
I'm fortunate enough to have seen that in my life then, because it's gone now.
I went with a school art trip.
I also remember the school trip. Everyone must have just gone on school trips.
Nope. Not me.
Some of us went to not shit school.
So badly on fire.
Sorry, private school.
Sorry.
Boarding school.
Jesus.
Boarding school.
So
yeah, it's gone a bit mad, and that's so depressing to see. You can't build that again with the Force.
No. Bring it back around Star Wars. So on to... Oh God, we've got... Right, what we're going to do, this is the final topic. I might push everything else over very quickly at the end to talk about. We'll have
There's not a lot to discuss here, to be honest.
No.
There is no information about it.
So, Mandalorian also got shown at Star Wars Celebration at the weekend. Like Ed says, again, not a huge amount of information got sort of shown. They did show a sort of production trailer, after they went off air of the live stream, which is a bit annoying because I thought, well, you know, if you're gonna do a presentation live stream on it, show the trailer as well. So it basically, we don't really know a huge amount more, but there's a camera. No, that's the wrong one. Next page of my notes. Pedro Pascal will be playing the main lead, the Mandalorian. We don't know actually his name, which I've got a slight feeling we won't probably find out in at least the first series, but he will just be referred to as the Mandalorian. We've got Gina Carano as Cara Dune. She's a former rebel shock trooper struggling to return to normal life after the war. Looks like she may be teaming up with him as a bit of a sidekick. We've also got Carl Weathers. Will be in the series. He's the leader of the Bounty Hunter Guild, bringing a bit more of the Legends lore into it. So there's a Bounty Hunter Guild. In the video trailer, it did show off a little bit more about that. Apparently, as well, on one of the things, but again, once you're in the live stream, they did show a little bit of the first episode for a few minutes, which was quite interesting. But I didn't actually see that, unfortunately. We'll also have a appearance of IG-88, which was a droid in Empire Strikes Back, which was like a little cone-headed one who kind of panning across in Empire Strikes Back, and then he gets to Boba Fett and says, "No disintegrations." But he's in there as well, which is a little bit interesting.
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't really know what else to say about this. Ed, have you got anything?
I don't actually. Because the only access I got to a trailer was one that was filmed on somebody's phone because they stopped the stream for the 2 minutes that the footage was on. It looks good. Basically all I have to say about Star Wars, and even by extension Marvel, coming to a streaming service where it's series-based stuff, serializing the Star Wars universe is a brilliant idea because it lets you pad out that story with way more ability to go in depth. So if you guys are really wanting to support Star Wars or Marvel, I highly encourage you to get Disney Plus and show them that these are the kind of products that you want to see. Don't support things like, it's too late now, but it's one of the main reasons I didn't support Solo, is I didn't want them to know that that's something that I wanted, because I don't want any more of those movies. And they realized that because the world did that to Solo and they cancelled all future plans. Don't do that with this. Give this a try. Yeah, it may not have the most interesting setting for some people who don't know anything about the Mandalorian or the Mandalorian Wars, but they're cool parts of the entire lore, so you should definitely check them out. And it's going to be serialized. Everyone loves their Netflix now, so let's give this a try.
I think it's going to be good.
I'd like to think so. I have no reason for it. No reason to suspect it's going to be shite.
David on Facebook says, "Can we talk about the Palpatine laugh?" I think you might have missed it, bud. David is one of my mates from my local town. Hey, David. How you doing?
Hey, David.
So, it's set 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and for you, Luke and James, I'd say this is probably a really good sort of introduction to Star Wars. I know, like you say, you like Star Wars, but you're not invested in it. I'd probably say this is probably a nice way of dipping a toe into it, because it's going to have multiple episodes. I believe it's not going to be an overly long series, which is quite nice, but it's going to show you a different side of Star Wars, which possibly could be a little bit darker and showing the more criminal underground. Especially with the bounty hunters and things like that, which is always a little bit more interesting and not as all about the Force and all that sort of thing. I think this would be a really good one for you both to probably give a try when it does come out.
Definitely give it a go.
Yeah, I think especially if you like your Halo and everything like that, I think there's going to be a little bit more combat involved, less about the lightsabers, more about the shooting, and more about the, especially if it's including the Bounty Hunter Guild, there's a lot of lore within that which makes kind of sense as a normal person. So, for example, the Bounty Hunter Guild was created to bring bounty hunters together, and they would be assigned a bounty. So then the Bounty Hunter Guild would go, right, you and you will go on this bounty, and then you will share the profits between you and then share a percentage with the guild. So basically, it stops infighting with bounty hunters and things like that. And then I've got
like John Wick.
Yeah, basically, very, very similar to John Wick, which I've got a slight feeling that this is probably going to take the Mandalorian character to a different location, and he's probably going to get a job which is probably not to do with the guild, and probably going to end up turning him against them, and there's going to be a bit of underhanding and all this sort of thing. He's going to find himself in a situation.
Is the Mandalorian going to take any sort of info, do you think, out of the Bounty Hunter game on the PlayStation 2?
Unlikely.
They're pulling lore pieces from different areas, so...
Do you think it's going to be totally, like, original?
I don't know if it'll be totally original. It'd be nice if they referenced that game. I really enjoyed that game.
That was a very good game.
It was good fun.
Good insight into...
It would be good if they actually did sort of reference that, maybe mentioning that Jango Fett was possibly hired to do something which then obviously led to the creation of the Clone Army, and what job it did entail. That would be quite cool. Apparently, Jango Fett and Boba Fett are not actually Mandalorians, apparently, in the lore of Star Wars now.
No, they're not.
So
they're officially not. They just wear Mandalorian armor.
Yeah, so their armor's Mandalorian armor, but they're not actually Mandalorian.
See, I only found out that recently.
Mandalorians are like this warrior race or something, aren't they? Or...
They're a race that became like a mercenary warrior race, yeah.
Yeah, because they were just
and there was something called the Mandalorian Wars that is referenced a lot in Mandalorian Wars.
It was mentioned quite a bit in SWOTOR and Knights of the Old Republic.
That's what I was trying to say. I lost where it was. But the Mandalorian Wars were a term given to the 16 years of conflict between the Mandalorian warrior culture and the Galactic Republic. So it's after the Sith War, which is quite a cool period of the Old Republic. I think they do that. They cover that in the game. I'm not sure how long this is before like present day stuff, but it's really cool. And basically,
I want to say about 1,000 years, something like that.
Something like that.
Between 500,000 years.
The Mandalorians apparently raided loads of star systems in the Outer Territories for over a decade before they came into conflict with the Republic military, which just meant they had this entire, they had outposts that weren't officially of Mandalorians, but were under Mandalorian rule. So I imagine Jango and Boba Fett were probably some of them.
Someone described it on YouTube. Star Wars Explains, amazing YouTube channel for all his Star Wars knowledge. But he sort of described it like the Mandalorian culture is very set up like Game of Thrones, where there's multiple houses, and they're all in sort of conflict with each other as well. So there's always this internal battle. We don't really know what the situation is with the Mandalorian culture at this stage in the galaxy, because obviously the Empire officially has ended at this point, but there's still groups of them scattered around the galaxy. The New Republic have cracked down on bounty hunter life, so their sort of culture has taken a bit of a hit. So this is probably going to kick in with a little bit with the guild and how they're having to handle it and what they're trying to dodge out the way of the New Republic rules and regulations. Maybe doing a little bit more.
I'd like to see them weave in how the First Order came about into this series.
That would be interesting if they actually link it to this series. Actually,
there might be a way of doing that. You know, if you're going to explore the Outer Rim, which is where the First Order arose from, where Snoke came from, that's going to be the kind of thing that you can tie into this really well and give loads of context for where this sudden new entire force came from.
And then branching off into
would they ever go back to look at the first Jedi?
Maybe. I'd like to see them do that.
How the Jedi was created as a
far
thing.
More interesting period of Star Wars history.
Do we know why the Jedi became a thing?
Yeah, in the same way that religions become a thing. It's the second you go, I believe this, you instantly have someone who goes, well, I don't believe that.
Right, okay. So Jediism is more of a religion with a superpower.
Absolutely. Well, they're fundamentally different in that Jedis think everything should be equal and peaceful, and they technically mediate. Jedis are mediators rather than anything else.
They're like samurai, aren't they?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
The samurais didn't really meddle unless they were sort of instructed or whatever.
Samurais were actually closer to Mandalorians in a way. If Mandalorians and Jedi had children, they'd be samurai.
Oh yeah, cool.
But that's what makes it really interesting, because like you said, they're meant to be mediators, and this is what really tied into the prequels, and a lot of this is why Anakin also stepped away, because they say that the Jedi lost their way and they stepped into the Clone Wars and became generals. And that's not what the Jedi meant to be. They're meant to be external people that look in and advise. They do not get involved within political situations and wars. However, when it came to the Clone Wars, they did. And so that's why they always say that the Jedi kind of lost their way. And there's been a lot of, a few fans asking for like a what if comic where Qui-Gon Jinn was he said that the council, he didn't believe in what the council was standing up for, basically. But obviously he got killed by Darth Maul, and some fans are asking, well, what happens if he wasn't killed by Darth Maul and Obi-Wan was, and he trained Anakin? Would he have been in the Clone Wars? Would he have left and walked away, and would he have taken Anakin with him? And then what would have happened then to the galaxy if Anakin had gone with Qui-Gon and not turned to the dark side and been trained in private?
That's that butterfly effect, isn't it? Of just, you could say it would change everything about everything.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting one.
If it's that much of a clinical point.
So this is coming in. So Disney did a press conference showing off Disney Plus. I believe it's coming in December, beginning of December time, somewhere around then. Along with they also talked about that they're going to start doing a series for Loki, Marvel series, along with Scarlet Witch. They've also announced that next year they will also get a
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yep.
I'm not interested.
They're two of the lamest characters. Like,
Exactly.
Bucky's only cool with his backstory, and how he came about, and then getting him over being brainwashed. Once you've done that, you just have a guy with one robotic arm and super strength, and he's not very cool.
That's not all. We're also getting a Hawkeye series.
That's no
Yeah, but as the female character, isn't it?
Well, Hawkeye.
Yeah.
No, Hawkeye's the one with the bow and arrow.
Yeah, he passes the torch, apparently, to a female.
Oh, does he?
I've read this somewhere, yeah.
Oh, that could be happening in Endgame. Could be happening in
Kate Bishop plays Hawkeye. She's a member of the Young Avengers team of superheroes in the Marvel Comics shared universe, the Marvel universe. She's the third character, the first female to take the Hawkeye name after Clint Barton of Avengers and Wyatt McDonald of Squadron Supreme.
Oh. That'd be interesting. So that's also coming to Disney Plus as well, as long as with the Clone Wars and Rebels as well, which I'm really looking forward to because I haven't watched all of those. So hopefully when that gets released, along with Mandalorian, I can catch up with all my nerdiness of Star Wars.
Huge Star Wars binge.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. I love that.
I'd love to do that. Like watch through it all and have people explain little bits and pieces to me. It'd
be amazing.
Sounds dream.
Be amazing. So that pretty much takes us to the end of the topics. There's a couple of other things as well to wrap up. Star Wars Vader Immortal Episode 1, the Oculus game, was shown as well with a trailer, which I'm playing now. Looks amazing. Fairly short, if I'm right, but it looks really, really cool. It makes me want to buy an Oculus to have a little go on it, or at least borrow one.
Absolutely. Just to play Star Wars. That's all you need.
It looks really cool. Like, you see him like reach for the lightsaber and picks the lightsaber up and just starts swinging it and blocking blaster fire and stuff. It looks absolutely amazing.
I remember the first time I played a VR Star Wars game. I think it was unofficial, but it was you had all the characters there. You were stood next to the Millennium Falcon as it came and touched down. And then the thing comes down and R2 comes out and you have to help him repair. And then someone turns up. Oh no, that's it. Stormtroopers turn up. So you have to get your lightsaber out of R2's head. And then you have to start deflecting stuff. That to me instantly was like what VR was made for. Because if you guys remember picking up a Wii remote, at what point, how soon in did you go?
Yeah.
Almost instantly. So the fact that they then made that real with VR was awesome for me. I just thought it was great. So it'd be cool to see this actual official game that looks really tight. See what it's like.
It does look really good, I have to admit. Even if it is a short story, I think immersing yourself within Star Wars in this way is just an amazing experience. It's going to be great. One thing I would like to do, actually, guys, I'm going to come down to London at some point in the future, and I'd love to go do the Star Wars experience with you guys, because you can have up to 4 people do it. So,
that sounds great.
So, have you seen it? So, you were actually...
I almost did it in LA.
You didn't do it in LA? Well, I want to come down to London and do it. It'd be amazing.
What do you do?
apparently it's a big kind of VR AR experience, but I kind of didn't want to look at it too much in case it was shit and it ruined my illusion of it.
Right.
It's basically you put the PCs on you. So you lay the backpack of the PC, you put the Oculus on or whatever is the Vive, and then we're all in the same experience together.
Oh, dude, that's sick. We need to do that.
And we're all
let's do
stormtroopers.
You know we're going to act out banging each other. There's no way I'm not going to watch Ed get banged by Luke in VR.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Why else
happening.
would you make these games?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Happening.
Well, in that case, guys, we'll arrange a date that I'll come down one weekend and we will all be stormtroopers and. I think we
Also bang each
invade.
other.
I think the story is that you invade Vader's castle on. What's the planet that he burns alive on?
Horseback.
The what?
What's the planet that he burns alive from lava? Darth Vader.
Just
Anakin?
Jedi on horses.
Mustafar.
Mustafar. So he has a castle on Mustafar, as Darth Vader does, and we're rebels dressed as Imperials, and we're going to go get a relic, basically.
Sick.
That'd be cool.
Let's do it. We've
Cool.
got to do this.
Cool. That sounds amazing.
Sounds good.
And on that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, that'll take us to the end of our live stream of This Week in Gaming, which included a lot of film and TV. So, hope that's okay. I enjoyed it. Ed, thank you so much. Your Star Wars knowledge is more than mine. Thank you so much.
Unparalleled.
Oh, yes. We will take over the galaxy together. Luke and James. Guys, I'm really sorry that we bombarded you with Star Wars information.
Dude, I've enjoyed it. I've actually enjoyed just sitting here and listening to it all. It's pretty good. It's made me want to see the films. So
That's good.
the new ones because I haven't seen them. So, but yeah,
I guarantee you'll enjoy 7. You'll probably still enjoy 8, and you'll love 9 when that comes out. I hope.
I need to watch them again anyway because I fell asleep.
So the one with BB-8 in it is not the.
Everything after episode 6 has BB-8 in it. So 7,
All right,
8, and now 9.
He's not like a pivotal character, Jim. He's not like
No, I
the
know, but that's
fucking.
the one.
Yes, he is.
Oh, did you see the new droid that came out?
7
Which
he is. He's got the map.
Oh, yes, he is actually. Yeah, he's kind of feeling.
Holds
the one with BB-8.
Yeah, but it's not about BB. Yeah.
Yes,
No, I know, but that's how I remember it.
Star Wars Episode 7, BB-8 Awakens.
And did you see the new droid that got shown on stage as well, which is small and BB-8 that actually
Yeah.
works? I know, but I was amazed that actually works. I was
yeah,
like,
it is cool seeing them puppet it live. I do agree.
that was really cool. Really cool. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. This is This Week in Gaming, every Monday at 8 p.m. over on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. We'll be back next Monday talking about video games, news, topics, and whatever we bloody well like.
Bank holiday Monday as well.
Oh, yes. So you'll have guys let me know whether or not you're available. So,
Sure.
Anyway.
I work from home, so bank holidays don't exist for me.
No, neither for me.
Got it, mate.
Anyway, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.